The morning sun rose over the green fields of New Haven Colony. Jake Morrison stood on his porch, drinking coffee and watching the wheat sway in the gentle breeze. He had been the colony administrator for 12 years now, and this place still felt like paradise to him. The colony stretched across a wide valley between two mountain ranges. 50,000 people called this world home. They had built their settlement carefully, with neat rows of houses, schools, and workshops. The farmlands extended for miles in every direction, filled with crops that fed not just the colonists but several nearby alien worlds too. Jake walked down the main street of Haven City, the colony's central town. People greeted him with smiles and waves. Children ran past him on their way to school. The local market was already busy with farmers selling their morning harvest. Everything seemed normal and peaceful. At the colony administration building, Jake found Lisa Grant waiting for him. She was the chief security officer, a tall woman with sharp eyes who never missed anything. Her security force was small but efficient, mostly dealing with minor disputes and helping with search and rescue operations in the mountains. "Morning, Jake," Lisa said. "The overnight reports came in. Everything's quiet." The perimeter sensors didn't pick up anything unusual. Jake nodded. The colony had a simple but effective security system. Sensors around the valley watched for large animals or dangerous weather. They rarely had serious problems on New Haven. Peter Hayes arrived next, carrying a tablet full of agricultural data. As the agricultural director, he managed the colony's farming operations. His team had developed new types of crops that could grow in different soils and weather conditions. Other worlds often asked for their seeds and farming advice. "The harvest projections look good," Peter reported. "We'll have surplus grain to trade with the Zephyrians next month. Their ambassador is excited about our new drought-resistant wheat." The Zephyrians were insect-like aliens who lived on a nearby world. They had been good trading partners for years, exchanging their advanced electronics for human food and farming knowledge. Jake enjoyed working with them. They were honest and peaceful. Unlike some of the other alien species he had heard about, Amy Carter, the communications specialist, joined them in the meeting room. She was young but skilled, managing all the colony's communication systems. She kept in touch with Earth and other human settlements, though messages took months to travel between star systems. "I got a reply from the Henderson colony," Amy said. "They want to know if we can send them some of our soil treatment equipment. Their crops aren't growing well in their new farming area." Danny Ross, the chief engineer, was the last to arrive. He was a big man with strong hands, always covered in grease from working on the colony's machinery. He maintained everything from the water pumps to the power generators to the farming equipment. "The new irrigation system is working perfectly," Danny reported. "Water pressure is steady across all the farming sectors. The backup generators are running fine, too." Jake looked around at his team. These people had helped build New Haven from nothing. When the first colonists arrived, there had been only empty land and wild plants. Now they had a thriving community. With advanced farming technology and good relationships with their alien neighbors. The morning meeting continued with routine reports. Crop yields were up. The school had enough supplies. The medical center was well stocked. The weather forecast showed clear skies for the next week. Everything was going well. After the meeting, Jake walked through the colony with Lisa. They visited the workshops where colonists built and repaired farming equipment. The machines looked simple but worked very well. Danny's engineering team had designed them to be strong and easy to fix. They stopped at the greenhouse complex, massive dome-shaped buildings where the colonists grew special crops. The domes were built into the hillsides, partly underground for protection from bad weather. Inside, the air was warm and humid, perfect for growing tropical fruits and vegetables. "These domes are impressive," Lisa commented. "Danny really outdid himself with the design," Jake agreed. The greenhouses could grow food year-round, even if the weather outside turned bad. They had thick walls and strong support beams. The colonists had learned to build everything to last. In the afternoon, Jake visited the school. The children were learning about Earth history and basic science. Many of them had been born on New Haven and had never seen Earth. To them, this colony was home. And they loved the wide open spaces and clean air. The teacher, Mary Johnson, showed Jake the students' projects. They were studying different alien species and learning about galactic politics. One student had made a model of a Zephyrian hive city. Another had drawn pictures of the various alien ships that sometimes passed through their star system. "They're good kids," Mary said. "They work hard and ask smart questions. They're proud of what we've built here." Jake felt proud too. The colony had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. They had turned a wild planet into a productive world. They had made friends with alien species. They had created a safe, happy place for their families. As evening approached, Jake stood on a hill overlooking the entire colony. The lights were coming on in the houses and buildings. Families were gathering for dinner. The farming machines were returning from the fields. Everything was peaceful and quiet. He thought about how lucky they were. Many human colonies struggled with poor soil, bad weather, or unfriendly neighbors. New Haven had none of those problems. They had good land, stable weather, and peaceful relations with nearby aliens. Jake didn't know that far above him, in the darkness of space, alien ships were approaching. He didn't know that the Hegemony, a powerful alliance of 4 alien species, had been watching New Haven for months. He didn't know that they saw the human colony as a threat to their expansion plans. The Hegemony ships moved silently through the star system, their weapons powered up and ready. Admiral Vexstar, the reptilian commander of the fleet, studied the data about the human settlement. To him, the colonists looked like simple farmers who would surrender quickly when faced with superior force. He had no idea how wrong he was about the humans of New Haven Colony. The alarm bells rang across New Haven Colony at dawn. Jake Morrison rushed to the administration building, still putting on his jacket. The emergency alert had woken everyone in the colony. People looked out their windows with worried faces, wondering what was happening. In the command center, Amy Carter was working frantically at her communication console. Her face was pale as she looked at the readings on her screens. Lisa Grant stood beside her, studying the data with a grim expression. "What's the situation?" Jake asked as he entered the room. 12 alien ships just entered our star system, Amy replied. "They're big ones, Jake, military vessels. They've been sending us messages for the past hour." Lisa handed Jake a tablet with the translated message. He read it quickly, his face growing serious. The message was from Admiral Vexstar of the Hegemony Fleet. It was short and direct. "Humans of New Haven Colony, you have 48 hours to evacuate this system. All human presence must be removed. The system now belongs to the Hegemony. Any humans remaining after the deadline will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly." Jake read the message again, unable to believe what he was seeing. The Hegemony had never claimed this system before. New Haven had been here for 12 years without any problems. They had legal rights to settle here, granted by the Galactic Council. "Have you tried to respond?" Jake asked. "Yes, but they're not accepting our communications," Amy said. "They just keep sending the same message over and over." Peter Hayes and Danny Ross arrived at the command center, both looking confused and worried. Danny was carrying a toolkit ready to fix whatever problem had caused the emergency alert. "What's going on?" Peter asked. "People are gathering in the streets. They want to know if we're under attack." Jake showed them the message. Both men read it with growing anger. They had put years of work into building New Haven. They had families here, friends, and a life they had built from nothing. "They can't just kick us out," Danny said. "We have rights. We've been here for 12 years. The Hegemony doesn't care." "About rights," Lisa said grimly. "I've heard stories about them from other colonies. They've been expanding their territory for years, pushing out smaller species." Jake called for an emergency meeting of the Colony Council. Within an hour, all the important leaders were gathered in the meeting room. The news had spread quickly through the colony, and people were scared and angry. Mary Johnson, the school principal, spoke first. "What about the children? Where are we supposed to go?" "This is their home. We can't just abandon everything, added Tom Parker, who ran the main farming cooperative. We have crops in the ground, equipment worth millions of credits, and buildings we've spent years constructing. Jake contacted the Zephyrian ambassador, hive singer Zelenoth, who lived in a small embassy building near the colony. The insect-like alien arrived quickly, his forearms moving nervously as he spoke. This is very bad news, Zelenoth said in his clicking voice. The hegemony has been threatening several systems in this region. They claim they need more space for their growing populations, but that is not the truth. What do you mean? Jake asked. The hegemony wants to control the trade routes that pass through this system. Your colony sits at the center of 3 major shipping lanes. Control this system, and they control a large portion of galactic trade. Lisa leaned forward. Have they done this before? Yes, many times. They forced the Crystalline Collective from their homeworld last year. Before that, they removed the peaceful swimmers from 2 ocean worlds. They always used the same method. Send ships, demand evacuation, then attack if the inhabitants refuse. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. The hegemony wasn't just trying to steal their land. They were following a pattern of aggressive expansion that had worked for them many times before. What happens to the species they force out? Peter asked. They become refugees, Zelenoth replied sadly. Some find new worlds, but most end up in overcrowded settlements on less desirable planets. Many die from the stress of relocation. Jake felt anger building inside him. New Haven wasn't just a colony to its residents. It was home to 50,000 people who had worked hard to build something good. They had children who had never known any other world. They had elderly residents who couldn't survive a difficult relocation. We need to contact Earth, Jake said. Get help from the Terran government, Amy shook her head. I already tried. A message to Earth takes 4 months to get there, and another 4 months for a reply. Even if they sent ships immediately, it would take over a year for help to arrive. What about other human colonies? Lisa asked. The closest ones are too far away, and none of them have military ships, Amy replied. We're on our own. The meeting continued for hours. They discussed evacuation plans, but the logistics were impossible. They had 50,000 people, including many elderly and sick residents who couldn't travel. Their ships were designed for cargo, not passenger transport. Even if they could evacuate everyone, they had nowhere to go. As the day wore on, more information came in. The hegemony ships were positioning themselves around the planet, blocking any escape routes. They had also jammed most communication channels, preventing the colonists from calling for help. Jake called for a colony-wide meeting in the main square. Thousands of people gathered, their faces showing fear, anger, and determination. Children clung to their parents. Elderly residents sat in chairs brought from their homes. Friends and neighbors, Jake began, you all know about the hegemony's demands. They want us to leave our home, the place we've built together over 12 years. They're giving us an ultimatum, but they're not giving us a real choice. He explained the situation honestly. The hegemony had superior military force. Help from Earth was months away. Evacuation was nearly impossible, and even if they could leave, they had nowhere to go. So what do we do? Someone shouted from the crowd. Jake looked around at the faces of his people. These weren't just colonists anymore. They were his family, his community, his responsibility. He thought about the children who had never known another home, the elderly who couldn't survive a harsh relocation, and the years of work that would be lost. We vote, Jake said. This is our home, our colony, our decision. Do we try to evacuate and hope for the best, or do we stay and defend what we've built? The vote was held immediately. People raised their hands to be counted. The result was clear and overwhelming. Of the thousands of people in the square, only a few dozen voted to evacuate. The rest chose to stay and fight. Jake felt both proud and terrified. He knew they were facing impossible odds. The hegemony had warships and advanced weapons. New Haven had farming equipment and a small security force. But looking at the determined faces around him, he knew they had made the right choice. "Then we stay," Jake announced. "We defend our home. We protect our families. We show the hegemony that humans don't surrender their homes without a fight." The crowd cheered, but Jake could see the fear in their eyes. They were brave, but they weren't foolish. They knew what they were facing. That night, as the colony prepared for the coming battle, Jake stood on his porch looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there, Admiral Vexstar was probably planning his attack. Confident that the human farmers would surrender quickly, he had no idea what the humans of New Haven were really capable of when they were fighting for their home. The 48-hour deadline passed without any response from the humans. Admiral Vexstar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the green planet below. His reptilian features showed no emotion, but inside he was annoyed. Most species surrendered before the deadline even expired. "Begin the bombardment," he ordered his weapons officer. "Target their main settlement first. A few precision strikes should convince them to reconsider." The first energy beam struck the outer edges of New Haven colony. Buildings exploded in bright flashes of light. The hegemony ships expected to see humans running in panic, trying to escape the destruction. Instead, something unexpected happened. Bright blue energy beams shot up from the planet's surface, striking one of the hegemony ships. The alien vessels. Shields flickered and sparked. More beams followed, coming from different locations across the colony. "What is that?" Admiral Vexstar demanded. "Where are those weapons coming from?" His tactical officer studied the readings with confusion. "The energy signatures are strange, sir. They appear to be industrial mining lasers on the planet's surface." Danny Ross was coordinating the colony's defense from a hidden bunker built into the mountainside. His engineering team had spent years preparing for this moment, though they had hoped it would never come. "Laser Array 7 is overheating," reported one of his technicians. "We need to rotate to backup systems." "Do it," Danny ordered. "And, keep those targeting computers updated. I want maximum accuracy on every shot." The colonists had indeed been using mining lasers, but not for mining. Danny's team had modified them years ago, turning them into powerful anti-aircraft weapons. They were hidden throughout the colony, disguised as normal farming equipment. Jake Morrison was in the main command bunker, watching the battle through periscopes and camera feeds. The bunker was built deep underground, connected to other hidden facilities by a network of tunnels. Most of the colonists were now safe in these underground shelters. "How are our defenses holding up?" he asked Lisa Grant, who was monitoring the security systems. "Better than expected," Lisa replied. "We've damaged 3 of their ships and forced them to pull back to higher orbit. Their ground forces haven't landed yet, but they will soon." The hegemony ships were indeed pulling back, surprised by the effectiveness of the human weapons. Admiral Vexstar was studying the battle reports with growing concern. "These weren't supposed to be warriors, they were farmers. Send down the assault teams," he commanded. "Infantry assault. We'll take their weapons positions and force them to surrender." The first wave of hegemony soldiers descended in armored dropships. They were experienced fighters from 4 different alien species, equipped with advanced weapons and armor. They expected to overwhelm the human defenders quickly. The dropships landed in what appeared to be empty farmland. The soldiers spread out, moving toward the colony's main buildings. Everything seemed quiet and peaceful. Then the ground exploded around them. Lisa Grant was commanding the ground defense from a hidden position in the hills. Her security force wasn't large, but every person in it had been chosen carefully. They knew the terrain perfectly and had prepared for this battle for years. "Detonate charges in Sector 7, she ordered into her radio. "Enemy forces are in the kill zone." The farmland around the hegemony soldiers erupted in a series of explosions. What had looked like normal fields were actually minefields, carefully laid out to channel invaders into predetermined areas. The alien soldiers found themselves caught in deadly traps. Peter Hayes was coordinating evacuations from the agricultural stations. His farming vehicles had been modified with armor and weapons. They moved through the countryside, rescuing colonists from outlying areas and bringing them to safety. Transport 12 is loaded, he reported over the radio. Moving to bunker? Complex 3? The vehicles looked like normal farming equipment, but they were much more than that. Danny's engineering team had reinforced them with armor plating and mounted weapons on many of them. They could carry people and supplies, but they could also fight. Amy Carter was in the communications center, working frantically to coordinate the defense. She had managed to hack into some of the hegemony radio frequencies, giving the colonists valuable intelligence about enemy movements. "I'm intercepting their tactical communications," she reported to Jake. "They're confused and angry." They didn't expect this level of resistance. The battle continued through the day. The hegemony forces found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know every rock and tree in the valley. The humans used the terrain to their advantage, striking from hidden positions and then disappearing into underground tunnels. What puzzled the alien attackers most was the colonists' equipment. Nothing was what it seemed. Irrigation systems turned out to be weapons platforms. Grain silos were actually armored bunkers. Even the greenhouse domes were built like fortresses, with thick walls and defensive positions. Admiral Vextar watched the battle reports with growing frustration. His forces were taking heavy casualties, but the humans seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Every time his soldiers thought they had found the enemy, they discovered they were attacking decoys or empty positions. "How many humans are we fighting?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Unknown, sir. They seem to have excellent command and control systems. Their movements are very coordinated." "What about their weapons? Where did farmers get military-grade equipment?" "That's unclear, sir. Much of their equipment appears to be improvised or modified civilian machinery." As night fell, the hegemony forces tried to regroup. They had lost over a third of their ground troops and had failed to capture any important positions. The human defenders seemed to be using night vision equipment and were continuing their attacks even in darkness. In the command bunker, Jake met with his team to assess the situation. They had performed better than anyone had hoped, but they knew this was just the beginning. "How are casualties?" Jake asked. "Light," Lisa reported. "We've lost some equipment, but very few people. The bunker system is working perfectly." "What about supplies?" "We have enough food, water, and ammunition for several weeks," Danny said. "The storage facilities are all underground and well protected," Jake nodded. They had planned for a long siege, but he wondered if they could really hold out against such a superior force. The hegemony had more ships, more soldiers, and more advanced weapons. "There's something else," Amy said. "I've been monitoring their communications. They're calling for reinforcements. More ships are coming." The news was sobering. They had managed to hold off the initial attack, but more enemies were on the way. Jake looked around at his friends and colleagues. They were tired but determined. "We knew this wouldn't be easy," Jake said. "But we also knew we were fighting for our home. We've shown them that humans don't surrender without a fight. Now we show them that we don't give up, no matter what the odds." Outside, the battle continued. Energy beams crisscrossed the night sky as human weapons engaged hegemony aircraft. In the underground bunkers, families huddled together, listening to the sounds of combat above them. The children were scared but trying to be brave. The adults were worried but determined to protect their home. Everyone understood that they were fighting for more than just their colony. They were fighting for their right to exist as free people in their own space. Admiral Vextar stared down at the planet with new respect for the human defenders. These weren't simple farmers. They were skilled fighters who had turned their entire colony into a fortress. He was beginning to understand that he had made a serious mistake in attacking them, but he couldn't retreat now. The hegemony's reputation depended on swift, decisive victories. If word spread that humans had successfully resisted their forces, other species might try to do the same. The battle for New Haven was far from over. The reinforcements arrived 3 days later. Admiral Vextar watched from his command ship as 8 more hegemony vessels entered the system. He felt relief mixed with embarrassment. He had told his superiors that the human colony would surrender. Quickly, instead, he was requesting additional forces to deal with what should have been a simple occupation. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a message from the planetary surface." "Put it through," Vextar ordered. The image that appeared on the screen surprised him. Instead of a frightened farmer begging for mercy, he saw a calm human male in military-style clothing. The man's eyes were steady and confident, showing no fear of the alien fleet surrounding his planet. "I am Jake Morrison, commander of New Haven Colony," the human said. "I have a message for you, Admiral Vextar." The reptilian commander was surprised that the human knew his name. "Speak," he replied. "You came here expecting to find helpless farmers," Jake continued. "You thought we would run away in fear when you showed us your ships. You were wrong. We are not just farmers. We are humans who have chosen to make this world our home, and we will defend it with everything we have." Admiral Vextar studied the human's face. There was something different about this one. He carried himself like a military officer, not a civilian colonist. "What are you really, human?" "We are what we appear to be," Jake replied. "People who grow food, raise families, and build communities. But we are also something else. We are people who have learned that peace must sometimes be defended with force." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Vextar with more questions than answers. He ordered his intelligence officers to analyze everything they knew about the human colonists. What they discovered changed everything. "Sir," his intelligence chief reported, "we've been monitoring their communications for weeks. Cross-referencing with galactic databases, we've identified several of their key personnel. What did you find?" Jake Morrison is not just a colony administrator. He's a former colonel in the Terran Marine Corps. He commanded the defense of Europa. Stationed during the Centauri Wars, Lisa Grant, their security chief, was a special operations officer. Danny Ross, their chief engineer, served in the asteroid mining conflicts as a combat engineer. Admiral Vextar felt a chill run down his spine. How many of them have military backgrounds? Based on our analysis, approximately 60% of the adult colonists are military veterans. "This isn't a farming colony, sir. It's a military settlement disguised as a civilian one." The revelation explained everything. The sophisticated defenses, the coordinated resistance, the modified equipment, it all made sense now. The hegemony had not attacked a group of helpless farmers. They had attacked a fortified position manned by experienced soldiers on the planet's surface. Jake was meeting with his command team in the main bunker. The arrival of enemy reinforcements had been expected, but it still made their situation more difficult. "What's our status?" Jake asked. "All defensive positions are holding," Lisa reported. "We've lost some outer sensors, but the main perimeter is intact. Casualties are still light. How about supplies?" "Ammunition is getting low for the mining lasers," Danny said. "But I've got teams working on that. We can manufacture more power cells in the underground workshops." Amy looked up from her communication console. "I've got something interesting. I've been monitoring hegemony communications, and they figured out who we really are." "What do you mean?" Peter asked. "They know we're not just farmers. They've identified several of us as military veterans. They're starting to understand what they're really fighting." Jake nodded. They had always known this moment would come. New Haven had been established as a retirement community for military veterans, a place where people who had served their time could live in peace. But peace didn't mean they had forgotten how to fight. "Have you made any progress on the long-range communications?" Jake asked Amy. "Yes, actually. I've managed to punch through their jamming on one of the backup arrays. I've been broadcasting our situation to every inhabited system within 50 light years." "What kind of response are you getting?" "Mixed. Some systems are too afraid of the hegemony to help, but others are listening. The Zephyrians are spreading word about what's happening here. Several smaller species are showing interest." Lisa looked thoughtful. "If we can hold out long enough, this might become bigger than just our colony." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Think about it. The hegemony has been bullying smaller species for years. Everyone knows it, but no one has been able to resist them effectively. If we can prove that they can be fought and defeated, others might join us." The conversation was interrupted by an alarm. Enemy forces were moving again, this time in much larger numbers. The hegemony had decided to commit all their ground forces to a massive assault. "All units, prepare for a major attack," Jake announced over the colony's communication system. "This is the big one. Everyone to defensive positions." The second battle for New Haven began at dawn. Hundreds of hegemony dropships descended toward the planet, carrying thousands of soldiers from 4 different alien species. The attack was coordinated and overwhelming, designed to crush the human resistance through sheer numbers, but the colonists were ready. During the 3-day lull, they had improved their defenses and prepared new surprises for the enemy. The battle that followed would become legendary throughout the galaxy. The hegemony forces landed in what they thought were clear areas, only to discover that the humans had booby-trapped everything. Entire landing zones exploded as hidden charges detonated. Soldiers found themselves under attack from positions they couldn't see, by enemies who knew every hiding place in the terrain. Danny Ross had worked around the clock to prepare new weapons. Farm equipment had been converted into mobile gun platforms. Irrigation pipes had been turned into missile launchers. Even the children's playground equipment had been modified with hidden weapons. "Fire mission complete," Danny reported over the radio. "Sector 12 is clear of enemy forces." The battle raged for hours. The hegemony forces were better equipped and more numerous, but the humans fought with desperate determination. They were defending their homes, their families, and their way of life. As the day wore on, something unexpected began to happen. Ships appeared at the edge of the star system, not hegemony vessels, but smaller craft from various species. Amy's broadcasts had been heard, and others were coming to see what was happening. "Jake," Amy called excitedly, "I'm getting communications from the new arrivals. The Zephyrians are here with a diplomatic ship. The Crystal Collective has sent observers. Even some of the peaceful swimmers have come." Jake realized that their small battle had become something much larger. They weren't just fighting for New Haven anymore. They were fighting for the right of all smaller species to resist hegemony aggression. Admiral Vexstar was also aware of the new arrivals. His superiors were demanding to know why a simple colonization mission had turned into a galactic incident. Other species were watching to see if the mighty hegemony could be defied. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're losing ground forces faster than we can replace them. The humans are fighting like demons." "How is that possible?" Vexstar demanded. "We have superior numbers and equipment." "They know the terrain perfectly, sir. Every position is fortified. They're using tactics we've never seen before: combined arms coordination, integrated air defense, strategic deception. These aren't farmers, sir. These are professional soldiers." Admiral Vexstar stared at the tactical display showing his forces being systematically destroyed by what should have been helpless colonists. He was beginning to understand that attacking New Haven had been the worst mistake of his career, and it was about to get much worse. The battle had been raging for 6 days when everything changed. Admiral Vexstar stood on his command bridge, watching his forces take massive casualties while failing to capture even one major position on the planet below. Half of his ships were damaged, and his ground forces were being systematically destroyed by the human defenders. "Admiral," his communications officer called urgently, "we're receiving reports from across hegemony space. There are uprisings on 12 worlds. The species we relocated are rebelling against our garrison forces." Vexstar felt his stomach drop. "What?" "The humans have been broadcasting the entire battle, sir. Every species in the region has been watching us struggle against a single human colony. They're saying that if humans can resist the hegemony, maybe they can too." The reptilian commander realized the full scope of the disaster. The attack on New Haven hadn't just failed, it had inspired rebellions across the hegemony's territory. Species that had been quiet for years were suddenly fighting back. Encouraged by the human example on the planet's surface, Jake Morrison was coordinating the defense from his command bunker. The colonists had not only survived the massive assault, but had actually begun pushing the enemy forces back. Their combination of military experience, superior knowledge of the terrain, and desperate determination had proven more effective than anyone had imagined. Status report, Jake called to his team. We've cleared the eastern approaches, Lisa reported. Enemy forces are retreating to their landing zones. We've captured a lot of their equipment. The modified farming vehicles are working perfectly, Danny added. We've got mobile strike teams moving freely across the battlefield. The enemy can't pin us down. Amy looked up from her communication station with excitement. Jake, you need to hear this. I'm getting messages from across the galaxy. The Zephyrians have officially broken their non-aggression pact with the hegemony. The Crystal Collective is mobilizing their fleet. Even some of the peaceful swimmers are arming their defense ships. Jake felt a mixture of pride and concern. They had wanted to defend their home, but they had accidentally started a galaxy-wide rebellion against hegemony expansion. There's more, Amy continued. I finally got through to Earth. The Terran government is sending a diplomatic mission. They're demanding an immediate ceasefire and negotiations. Peter Hayes, who had been quiet during the military discussions, spoke up. What happens to our crops? We've got harvest season coming up. If we survive this, we still need to feed our families. Despite everything, Jake smiled. Peter was worried about the practical details of running a farming colony in the middle of a galactic conflict. It was exactly the kind of thinking that had made New Haven successful. We'll figure it out, Jake assured him. We've come this far. The turning point came on the 7th day. Admiral Vextar received an urgent message from Hegemony High Command. The rebellions across their territory were spreading faster than they could contain them. The military was being stretched thin trying to maintain control of their existing worlds. Admiral Vextar, came the voice of Supreme Commander Karthik. You are ordered to cease all operations against the human colony. Immediately. Return to base for reassignment. Sir, we can still complete the mission, Vextar protested. Given more time. Negative. The operation is terminated. We have larger problems to deal with. Your attack on the humans has destabilized half our territory. We need every ship to suppress the rebellions. Vextar felt his career crumbling around him. The simple colonization mission had become a disaster that might ultimately destroy the hegemony itself, but he still had one option left. Instead of admitting defeat, he could destroy the human colony completely. If New Haven ceased to exist, maybe the rebellions would lose their inspiration. Prepare for orbital bombardment, he ordered. Full power. I want that planet turned to glass. His weapons officer hesitated. Sir, there are observer ships from neutral species in the system. They'll witness everything. I don't care. Fire. The massive energy beams lanced down from the hegemony ships, striking the planet's surface with devastating force. Mountains exploded, rivers boiled away. The beautiful green valleys of New Haven were turned into burning wastelands, but the humans had planned for this too. Deep underground, in bunkers carved into solid rock, the colonists waited out the bombardment. Danny Ross had designed the shelter system to withstand even this level of attack. The bunkers were connected by tunnels that stretched for miles, with independent air supplies and radiation shielding. Bombardment is continuing, Amy reported from the communications center deep underground. But we're safe down here. The bunkers are holding. Jake felt sick as he watched the destruction of their beautiful world through the periscope cameras. 12 years of work were being destroyed in minutes. The wheat fields, the orchards, the careful gardens, all gone. How long can we stay down here? He asked Danny. Weeks if necessary. We have enough supplies for the entire colony. Air recycling. Systems are working perfectly. We just have to wait it out. The bombardment continued for 3 hours. When it finally stopped, the observer ships immediately began broadcasting images of the devastation across the galaxy. The hegemony had just committed genocide in full view of dozens of neutral species. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had been neutral declared their opposition to the hegemony. military alliances formed overnight. The galactic community was horrified by what they had witnessed. "Admiral," came an urgent message from Hegemony High Command. "What have you done?" "I eliminated the human colony as ordered," Vexstar replied. "We did not order you to commit genocide. Every species in the galaxy is now mobilizing against us. You have destroyed the hegemony." Deep underground, Jake received a message that changed everything. Amy had managed to establish contact with the Terran fleet, which had just arrived at the edge of the system. "New Haven Colony, this is Admiral Kate Murphy of the Terran Defense Force. We're here with a full battle fleet. Are you still alive?" "Down there?" Jake grabbed the microphone. "This is Jake Morrison. We're alive, Admiral. Beaten up, but alive." "Outstanding. We're moving to engage the Hegemony fleet. Help is on the way." The Battle of New Haven became the largest space engagement in galactic history. The Terran fleet was joined by ships from dozens of species, all united in their opposition to hegemony. Aggression. The alien alliance that had seemed so powerful was suddenly facing enemies on every front. Admiral Vexstar's fleet was outnumbered 10-1. His ships were damaged from the long siege, and his crews were demoralized by the failure of their mission. The battle was over quickly, with most of the hegemony vessels surrendering or fleeing. When the fighting finally ended, Jake led his people back to the surface. The sight that greeted them was heartbreaking. Their beautiful colony had been reduced to smoking ruins. The green fields were blackened craters. The buildings they had built with their own hands were gone, but they were alive. 50,000 colonists had survived the bombardment in the underground shelters. They had lost their homes, but they had not lost their lives or their spirit. "We'll rebuild," Jake announced to the gathered colonists. "It will take time, but we'll make this world green again." The reconstruction of New Haven became a galactic effort. Species from across the galaxy sent ships loaded with supplies, equipment, and volunteers. The Zephyrians brought advanced agricultural technology. The Crystal Collective provided construction materials. Even former hegemony species contributed to the rebuilding effort. Within a year, New Haven was not just rebuilt, but transformed. The new colony was larger and more advanced than before. The underground bunker system was expanded and improved. The agricultural facilities were the most advanced in the galaxy. More importantly, New Haven had become a symbol. It was proof that small groups could resist tyranny if they had the courage to fight. The colony became a pilgrimage site for species. Seeking freedom from oppression, Jake Morrison found himself transformed from a colony administrator to a galactic hero. He was invited to speak at the Galactic Council, where he addressed representatives from hundreds of worlds. "We never wanted to be heroes," he told the assembled delegates. "We just wanted to grow food and raise our families in peace. But when someone tried to take that away from us, we discovered that peace is worth fighting for." The hegemony collapsed within 2 years. The rebellions that had started during the Battle of New Haven spread across their territory until their government fell. The oppressed species reclaimed their homeworlds and formed a new alliance based on mutual cooperation rather than conquest. Admiral Vexstar was tried for war crimes and spent the rest of his life in prison. His attack on New Haven was remembered as the greatest military blunder in galactic history, the moment when a powerful empire destroyed itself by underestimating a small group of determined humans. 5 years after the battle, Jake stood in the same spot where he had drunk his morning coffee on that peaceful day before the war began. The wheat fields stretched to the horizon again, golden in the morning sun. Children played in the rebuilt town square. The colony was thriving. Lisa Grant joined him, now serving as the military advisor to the new Galactic Defense Alliance. "Any regrets?" she asked. Jake thought about the question. They had lost so much, their original colony,